Okay, so you're very welcome to this Going Deeper in Meditation course. It's lovely to see so many of you again that I've met on other courses. Met, meaning online, of course. Um, uh, my name is Vajra Shura, if you haven't met me. And normally Kevin, who was supporting my last two meditation courses, will be supporting, but he's away this week, or he's not able to make it this week. So Stephen is very capably stepping in. I'll let Stephen introduce himself in a moment. Just a few little housekeeping points. You've all been on courses with us before, but some of you might not have been on Zoom courses before. So just to say that if you're using Zoom, if you're not familiar with Zoom, I mean, it's a great tool for doing these kinds of things. But if you're having problems with your bandwidth, or the sound isn't coming through okay, or whatever, you can turn off your own video. And on a computer, you do that by moving down to the bottom left corner and clicking stop video. And if you're having sound problems, if you move down to the mute button and click the arrow beside it, you can choose, sometimes choosing a different speaker helps as well. But if you can hear me okay, don't worry about any of that. I have muted you all because there's 68 people at the moment, and it's just almost impossible to have a conversation with 68 people. But from next week onwards, we will be doing smaller breakout rooms, so you'll get a chance to talk to each other. Good morning, Jimmy. The last thing then to say, as I always say on these online courses, is that we're on electronic devices, so I'm not going to be doing this because I'm going to be too busy speaking. But if you're there listening, it's very tempting to just, oh, there's an email notification, I'll go and check that out. Or if you're on your phone, your WhatsApp messages still keep coming in. So I'd really recommend, if you can, obviously you can't go to flight mode or you'll lose this call, but to just ignore your notifications, or turn on your do not disturb or something like that. And just try and stay with this one thing and not be fragmented. It's very, I notice it myself in business calls on Zoom. You just end up reading the newspaper silently, and you develop your Zoom face so that they can't tell that you're reading. So watch out for that kind of thing as well. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else about Zoom? If you drop out of the call, as always, you can just use the same link to come back in again. So just click on the same link if you do drop out. I'm also recording the morning, as I usually do on these courses, so they'll be made available afterwards. So if you have to leave early, or if you have to miss a week, every week will be available for you. It says live on YouTube as well, but actually it's not live on YouTube publicly. It's just to my own personal account, just so I can have a backup recording device in case anything happens to the Zoom recordings. Once or twice I found Zoom messed up the recording. I don't want to lose the class for all the people who couldn't make it this morning. Yeah. Okay, there's a bit of noise going on in the background. Our bin collection men are outside, so my mic is very sensitive. Hopefully that isn't too loud. Okay, so let's see, what's next? To say a bit about myself then. So my name is Vajra Shura. I've met many of you, as I've said. I'm going to be leading the course over these next 5 weeks. I've been meditating for about 21 years now, coming up to 21 years. So my background is that I was is theoretical physics. I'm a scientist by training, and while I was doing a master's in what's called high performance computing, my friend kind of talked me into doing a yoga class. And I went along to a yoga class and found it very, very good. And then he convinced me to do a meditation class as well. He said, I used to do this meditation class last year, but I used to come home drunk and try and meditate. So I want to do it properly this time. So we went along and did it properly. And I loved meditation right from the off. And I've been meditating pretty much consistently from that point. A bit hit and miss in the first couple of years. And I started working in the Dublin Buddhist Centre in around 2003, I think it was. And in 2007, then I got ordained into the Triratna Buddhist order, which is the order at the heart of our community. So that's why I have the strange name. That's why I have the kesa, which is in a way, my ceremony, my representative robes, you could say. And for me, I just want, what it means to be ordained is just to live a really committed Buddhist life. So I'm living a really committed Buddhist life. That's what I see meaning, that's what it means to be an order member. And Stephen is also training to be an order member. And then in terms of a meditation, because this is a meditation course, the reason I meditate is because it brings a sense of meaning and connection into my life. So I meditate. Meditation doesn't give me the meaning of life, but it gives me an opportunity to live a life with much more meaning. And so for me, it allows me to express the kind of person I want to be in the world. I don't want to just be a happy person in myself. I want to be someone who can positively contribute to the world. I suspect that's what all of us want, actually, really, most deeply. And meditation allows me to do that. Yeah, so that's a bit about me. So Stephen, I'll just spotlight Stephen. And Stephen, do you want to unmute yourself and say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello all, I'm Stephen. I've been meditating for about 2.5 years now. It was a New Year's resolution back in 2018, and I never left the center after that, essentially. My relationship with meditation hasn't always been incredibly enthusiastic. Unlike Vajrashura, I don't think meditation was something that I loved straight away. And so that's why this course is particularly good for me, and that I'm delighted to be involved in it. And the reason why I do meditate is sometimes that I can realize when I'm not meditating, more so than the direct benefit that I'm getting from the meditation. So when I don't meditate in a consistent way, I become a lot more reactionary to the people around me or to situations, or my headspace becomes a lot more tumultuous, or my thinking becomes tighter, and I become less productive in a very functional way. So yes, that's why I meditate, and I'm sure that relationship will change as the years go on. But yeah, I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm looking forward to the course.
Great, thanks, Stephen. I might just mute you. Great. Okay, so just to say a bit about the Dublin Buddhist Centre. So this isn't the Dublin Buddhist Centre, as you probably guessed. So as many of you know, so this is the house where I live in. I live in a Buddhist community with 4 other men, and this is our shrine space where we meditate. We were meditating all here this morning. But the Dublin Buddhist Centre itself, which hopefully you'll get to make it to, most of you. I'm not sure about if you're based in Canada, Mike, but maybe you'll be over some point. But yeah, the Dublin Buddhist Centre is basically a not-for-profit religious charity, and what we're about is just offering meditation, offering Buddhism, offering ways of improving people's lives to the world. We don't do it for the money. You know, any donations we receive are very gratefully received to help us keep the centre going. Myself and Stephen aren't paid to do this. We just want to offer meditation and make meditation as available as possible in the world. So it's great to see 70 of you now here for the course. Let's see. Okay, so just to give an overview of the course, let me just share my screen now, so hopefully you can see this. So what we're going to do over these 5 weeks is we're going to, today we're going to be looking at a deeper dive into mindfulness and the mindfulness of breathing. Next week, we're going to do a deeper dive into metta, the loving kindness practice, the development of loving kindness, the metta bhavana. In week 3, we're going to look a bit more deeply at the hindrances, because I assume that many of you, if not all of you, if not all of us, are still getting distracted at times in meditation. So I'm going to look more deeply at that, hindrances and helps in meditation. We're going to look a bit more in week 4 at just sitting and the whole question of effort in meditation. So effort's a really interesting area in meditation, and one that is quite subtle and quite central actually to how we should work in meditation. And then in week 5, we're going to look at bringing reflection more into our meditation. I know that we try not to think in the mindfulness of breathing and the metta bhavana, but there are useful ways in which we can bring reflection into meditation, and indeed reflect outside of meditation that help in meditation. So we'll be looking at that in week 5. And so that's the 5 weeks of the course. Now, also just to say that there will be a week gap during the course. So let me just, I emailed you that. So after the third week, there'll be a week gap, and then there'll be the last 2 weeks, because unfortunately I'm away. I can't remember the exact date. I think it's around the 28th, I think, of July, but it's in the email that I sent you, and I'll remind you again in the coming weeks. Okay, so we'll have weeks 1, 2, and 3 together, a week gap, and then week 4 and week 5. So apologies for that gap. Okay, so to give you a sense of what we'll do tonight, today rather, sorry, this morning. I usually teach in the evenings, but today. So we'll have some introductions, and I'll ask you to reflect a bit on how your meditation practice is. We'll look at 2 aspects of mindfulness that we didn't bring out fully, or we didn't really bring up much at all on the beginner's course, the newcomer's course, presence and continuity of purpose. So we'll look at those. Then we're going to do a longer period of the mindfulness of breathing. So that'll be about 30 minutes, 35 minutes. And then after that, in the second half, we'll look at some pointers for going deeper in the mindfulness of breathing, some tips, some ways of practicing that I've found useful and other people have found useful. And then we'll start to finish up then by looking at, well, how do you get the most from this meditation course? So I will be asking you to do certain things to get the most from the course. And then included with that then will be your home practice during the week, and we'll have a bit of time answering questions as well. So that I'm not sure how all the timings will work out yet, but because I haven't run this course online yet, but we'll certainly have time for questions throughout the course as well. And as I said, just to flag, next week what we'll probably do is we'll probably start off with going into small breakout rooms to talk about how your meditation practice has been during the week. We won't do that this week, so you can settle in, but next week we'll do that, yeah? Okay, so let me just stop the sharing. Okay, I think it was the 22nd. Thanks, Marianne, for that. Yeah, so it's the 22nd of July. That sounds right, yeah. So the Wednesday morning. Okay, so let's see, where do we want to go next? Good. So what I'd like you to do now is we're just going to do a very short body scan, and then that'll lead us into a reflection. So why don't we just set ourselves up for meditation now? So, set yourself up so you can sit upright, so you can sit alert, so you can sit comfortably. Excuse me. And we're just going to be sitting for maybe 5 minutes or so, 5 to 10 minutes. So when you're ready, closing your eyes. Being aware of the sounds we can hear, a sense of the space around us, whatever people we might be able to hear moving around. Becoming aware of the contact of our body with the chair, with the cushions, with the ground. Maybe just taking a deeper breath or two down into the belly. Then relaxing the breath again. Can we feel the chair, the cushions supporting our body? Can we let go of a little bit more into those? Can we feel our back, our shoulders? Is our face soft, relaxed, our eyes relaxing, our jaw not clenched? We're not frowning. Can we feel our hands, the sensations in our hands? And then dwelling in the chest, in the heart, in the stomach, just feeling the rise and fall of the rib cage, the abdomen, as we breathe in and out. And with each exhalation, just letting go a bit more into the floor, into the cushions, into the chair. And just following the breath for another couple of minutes, like in the stage 3 of the mindfulness of breathing, without any count. And letting go of the breath then and just sitting for a few moments. And starting to broaden out our awareness again then to become aware of the room around us, the sounds, the space we're in. And in your own time then, bringing the practice to a close, reintroducing movement, opening your eyes. Okay, and then coming back to a regular seated position if you wish. So we will be sitting for in a few minutes for half an hour. So do save your knees if that's going to be an issue. If, you know, it's tempting to stay sitting on in posture, but you will have a bigger sit coming up in a few minutes. Yeah. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now, and while you're doing this, I might just go and grab myself a glass of water. What I'd like you to do now is just have a think about how is your mindfulness of breathing practice right now? Yeah, how is your mindfulness of breathing practice right now? And are you getting to sit every day? Is there any particular difficulties you're having with the mindfulness of breathing? And is there any way that you would like to take it deeper that you can think about? And also maybe what is it you appreciate about the mindfulness of breathing? So you don't have to do all those questions, but just how is your mindfulness of breathing? Is there any particular difficulties you have? Is there anything you particularly appreciate about it? And how would you like to take it deeper? So why don't we just reflect about those for a couple of minutes, and maybe you could write in the comments section, and we'll see. It'll just give us a flavor of how our collective, our individual practices. You know, we'll all become aware of the different things people are experiencing in relation to the mindfulness of breathing. So, how is your mindfulness of breathing? Is there any particular difficulties? Is there anything particularly you appreciate? Would you like to take it deeper? You might also like to think, are you doing it daily? That's often the challenge, is just doing it daily as well, a meditation practice. You don't have to communicate all that in the chat. You could say whatever you want in the chat if you want when you're ready to. I will be back in 2 minutes, so off you go and have a think about that, yeah? Okay, great. So some people are typing in already. So how is your mindfulness of breathing? Great, so lots of comments coming through. I'll read them out in a minute. Okay, so I might just start reading out a few. There's more. Oh, there's loads of messages coming through now. Great. Okay, I'm afraid I won't get to everyone's, but let me just see what's up. What the ones are here. Okay, so great. Bernie sometimes floats away, but follows the guided meditations. Okay, Adrienne is doing it every day. Some days more focused, of course. Definitely improving. Roisin, that's good. Yeah, Sam was wondering how you do the mindfulness breathing without being guided. Just to say that on the guided meditation pages, there are further down the page, you know, with the guided meditations, and I'll send them out to you. There is sessions which are just bells for different lengths of time. So you could do like anything up to a 40-minute sit with just bells. But also on my phone, I use Insight Timer, so you can set. It's a very good app, and you can just set timers. It's a bit complex to do, but you can set up like bells every 10 minutes if you're doing a 40-minute sit, or bells every 6 minutes if you're doing a 25-minute sit or whatever. So you can use that. I meditate most days, meditating every day. Good, yeah, practice every day. Mind tends to wander, lots of people drifting off sometimes, especially if they're tired. People would like to be more committed to daily meditation. Marianne mentions about the in-breath through the nose. Marianne, just breathe through your mouth if you need to. There's nothing wrong with that. I often do that when I have a cold or whatever. Hilda loves meditation. Still getting distracted, but you can do it better than metta. Metta brings up more things. Julianne, this past week, not so good. Up to that point, very disciplined. Good. Would like to sit for longer. We will be asking you to sit for longer on this course. That's fine. Anne, about skipping, if you can feel the breath in the abdomen, that's completely fine. Good. Some people still got too many comments. It's great to see them all. It's lovely to hear from you, actually. Okay, I'm just not going to get through them all, but I'm enjoying reading them. Do have a read as well if you want. The app was called Insight Timer, and you can get it on Apple and Google Play. Yeah, I think it's free, but even if it's €5, it's probably the best €5 you'll ever spend. There's lots of guided stuff on it. I don't tend to use that stuff. I just use it for the timer, but it is very good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Tom, cycling analogy. Yeah, Kieran, I sort of prefer a do-yourself meditation, but when I do that, it's more of a just sitting. Okay, good. Inclined to drift. Okay, good. Meditating most days. So Ashlyn actively avoids metta. I presume you mean the metta bhavana, Ashlyn. I'm sure you're very kind to people off the cushion, yeah? Dimitra, yeah, good. I feel definitely more disciplined now. Yeah, good. Yeah, meditation will definitely open up stuff, yeah? And the metta bhavana, for example, some people have said opens up stuff. Okay, Cassia, learn to meditate with Shambhala and find it better to meditate with your eyes open. That's completely fine, Cassia. If you do meditate with your eyes open, I'm only joking, Ashlyn, I'm sure you're very kind. If you do meditate with your eyes open, it's good to have a soft focus so you're not looking at something, I find. Particularly if you find you're very tired or you're sleepy, meditate with your eyes open. You can do it. It's a bit more unusual if you're not used to it, but it is a good way of keeping yourself awake. And Ashlyn, come back next week and we'll look at metta more deeply, okay? Okay, so lots of good comments there. Just if I haven't answered your question and you have a specific question, send it again and I'll get back to it in a few weeks, or in a few minutes, sorry, in a few minutes. Yeah, good. And Kieran can now sit with legs crossed. That's great, good man. Okay, so just it's good to be aware of the purpose of the mindfulness of breathing. Yeah, so it's good to be clear what the mindfulness of breathing is for. And if I had more time, I'd ask you to brainstorm this, ideally in smaller groups. But just to remind you what the mindfulness of breathing is about. I mean, it would be worth clarifying what it means for you. But many of you have said it in the list there that, you know, more calm, you really appreciate it, and so on. It's about mindfulness of breathing. It's about cultivating awareness. It's about cultivating mindfulness, yeah? It's about being able to be aware of what's going on in your experience. That's what mindfulness is. It's about being able to be aware of what's going on in your experience. So some people ask, what do you mean by experience? But by experience, I just mean whatever's happening to you, whatever you can feel, yeah? So it might be physical feelings, it might be emotional feelings, it might be responses to what's going on in the world around you, or whatever experiences you're having in relation to the world around you as well. It's quite a broad term. So mindfulness is about being able to be aware of and stay with whatever is going on internally, externally. So that's really important. You're able to be aware of and to be able to stay with whatever's happening, whatever's going on for you. Yeah. So the mindfulness of breathing is a practice to help us to be able to do that. And what we're doing in the mindfulness of breathing is we're practicing staying with whatever's going on as we breathe, yeah? And we're particularly focusing, strengthening our ability to stay with one thing, which is the breath, yeah? So we're setting up a habit of being able to stay with the breath through time, yeah? So it's about being, ideally being blissfully absorbed in the breath, although that might not be our experience for some time. Really, it's about being able to stay present with things, regardless of whether they're pleasant, painful, or neutral. Yeah. So you might remember in week 2, I was talking about how the Buddha said that everything has a feeling tone. Everything we experience, be it a physical sensation, a memory, an emotion, a sound, everything has an associated feeling tone of pleasant, painful, or neutral. And the difficulties, we create our world out of those feeling tones. So if things are painful, we think we're doing something wrong and we do all kinds of things to get away from it. If things are pleasant, we think, oh, we're finally winning at life, or we're getting rewarded, so we want more of it, and we grab onto it and destroy it, actually. And if things are neutral, we get a bit bored, and we usually get into some kind of craving then, you know. So again, there's a lot in that, and you could do there is whole Buddhism courses you can do on that. But mindfulness is about being able to stay with things, regardless of whether they're pleasant, painful, or neutral, in an open kind of way. So there's 2 aspects to that mindfulness. Let me just share the screen again that I want to draw out before we do a period of the mindfulness of breathing. So the 2 aspects of mindfulness. The first one is what I like to call presence. Yeah, so being present to your experience, turning up to your experience. So sometimes this is called present moment awareness, you could say. So present moment awareness is just being with what's going on, you know. Okay, so you're in your physical experience. You're aware of the breath. You're aware of the breath as it goes out of the body, the breath as it goes into the body. So this is all that you've heard already before. The problem with presence is that, sorry, I'll come back to the problem with just focusing on presence. So how we set up being present to our experience. Sometimes I find the words that we use are very important. So you can talk about being aware, but sometimes I think being present is a better way of looking at it. Being present with breath, you know. It involves setting yourself up well before the meditation, as we saw in the last course. It involves bringing as much of you as you can to bear on the breath, you know, bringing yourself as fully into the meditation practice as you can. It involves being with whatever experience arises in meditation, without rejecting, pushing things away, or without grabbing onto things in a very clingy way. So what I mean by not pushing things away is that if you're with the mindfulness of breathing and you have a pain in the body as you breathe, you're not just kind of pushing that away and denying it. You have to breathe with that and allow that in. I'm not so much talking about indulging hindrances or distractions as such. It's more like being present with what's there. And maybe even at times, you know, memories, difficult emotions will come up. So being present with them as well can be a good thing. So we can't just, you have to decide how much to go into them, obviously, but you can at least breathe with them and try and allow them to soften. So presence includes that as well. And also presence, you know, a good way of cultivating presence is off the cushion to see if we can practice being present the rest of our day as well. But presence isn't just enough, because if you can be really present and then you drift off into something else that you're present to. So you're really present to your daydreams or your anxiety about work later on, you know? So we need something else. And what that something else is called continuity of purpose. So the word for mindfulness in Buddhism is sati. And one of the, etymologically, it's linked to the word to remember. So a lot of mindfulness is simply remembering to be mindful. Yeah, and that's where continuity of purpose comes in. So the main reason I drift off in meditation is that I forget that I'm meant to be staying with the breath. I don't know if that's your experience as well. I forget that I'm meant to be focusing on the breath and not on that work thing that I'm anxious about, or not on that daydream about the chocolate cake that awaits, or the lottery win that's going to change your life, you know. I forget that I'm meant to be staying with the breath. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of people's experience, actually, that you forget what you're meant to be doing. So continuity of purpose is being really clear about what you're meant to be doing throughout the session of meditation, reminding ourselves and staying true to our purpose. So our purpose in the mindfulness of breathing is to stay with the mindfulness of breathing. It's to stay with the breath in the body. It's to stay with the count after the out breath in the first stage, the count before the in breath in the second stage, the breath generally in the third stage, the point of first contact and the sensations there in the fourth stage. So most people, I think, don't pay enough attention to their purpose, their continuity of purpose. So when we set up our meditation practice, what we try and do is we tune into the foundations of mindfulness, as I mentioned, but then we become really clear, okay, for the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it is, I'm going to really work to stay with the breath. Yeah, I'm going to really work to stay with the breath. And you might even, every time a new stage begins, remind yourself of your purpose. And in the sit we'll lead now, I'll remind us of our purpose at the start of every stage. Yeah. So in a way, presence is about just being here and now. Yeah. But continuity is more about keeping that here and nowness throughout time as we go forward. Yeah. So presence is about being here and now, and continuity of purpose then is about remembering to stay present as we go through time. Yeah. As we go through the different stages of the meditation. And things that are helpful for this is just to set a resolution. A resolution is very useful. I'm going to stay with this practice. And that might mean a bit of effort. You know, you might need to almost lean forward into the meditation saying, no, I'm going to really engage with this. And that isn't being willful necessarily. I mean, it can spill over into willfulness that's unhelpful, but that's something that we can do. Another thing we can do is at the end of our meditation practice, when we come out after just sitting, we can tune into how we feel. How has that meditation affected us? Hopefully it's affected us positively. And we can reflect on how meditation is useful, the usefulness of meditation, how it changes us. And that'll help us to realize meditation has a positive effect on us. And next time we'll go in more enthusiastic as well. So anyway, so that's what I wanted to, there's more in the notes that I'll give out this week, but for now, maybe that's enough. So we want to be present to the breath, but we also want to have a clarity of what we're doing and why we're doing it. What are we meant to be doing in this stage? And not just drifting off into forgetfulness. Continuity of purpose as an antidote to forgetting why you're there following the breath, or more accurately, forgetting what you're meant to be doing at this stage in the practice. So if you have any questions, you can send them in the chat, and in a minute or two then I'll lead us through a period of the mindfulness of breathing where we'll draw this out. And we're going to sit for a little longer than we did on the beginner's course. We're going to sit for about 30 minutes, but hopefully that's a bit clear. Presence and continuity of purpose as a first bit of input on the mindfulness of breathing. And if you haven't any questions, why don't we set ourselves up for meditation, and I'll lead us through it. Stephen, I just got a thumbs up that the sound is okay and everything. You can hear me all good? Good, good, good. So setting ourselves up, getting into your postures. We are going to be sitting for a little bit longer now, as I said. And this time, when we move from stage to stage, I'm going to ring a bell. So I didn't do this on the beginner's course, but it's typical in meditation sessions in the Buddhist Centre or elsewhere that when we move to a new stage, we ring a bell. So I'm not sure how this communicates itself over the microphones. Can have a funny relationship with bells. I'll just ring it now to see how it sounds. That sound okay, Stephen? Yep. Okay. It might sound a little bit weird. Sometimes it cuts off very quickly on the microphone. That's not me. It might just be the microphone. Yeah. Okay. So setting ourselves up, settling into our meditation, closing our eyes if we haven't done so already. Having a sense of our surroundings, the sounds we can hear. the room we're in. Tuning into our physical experience a bit more, starting with the contact with the floor, with the cushions, with the chair. So we're beginning to set up this presence now, being present to our experience, beginning with our physical experience, particularly the legs, the sitting bones, the feet. Can you be present to what's going on there? Can you be with that? Can you be aware of it? Then your back and your shoulders. Opening up to whatever you can feel there. That's another way of thinking of presence, opening up to. Opening up to what we can feel in our face. What we can feel in our hands and our arms. Our stomach and abdomen. The rise and fall of the rib cage as we breathe in and out. And the heart area. Tuning into how it feels to sit here. Are we at ease? Are we comfortable? Are we uneasy? Are we uncomfortable? Is our experience of sitting here pleasant or painful? And just seeing if we can be present with this as well, without pushing it away or pulling it towards us. If it is quite painful, we can breathe with it, soften into it. If it's pleasant, we can just be open to it. Noticing emotions and thoughts as well then. What's our internal weather like? Allowing this in, being present with this as well. And now allowing an awareness of the breath to emerge within all this. So not grabbing the breath, but just allowing it to emerge into our experience, into our awareness. And clarifying our intention now, setting our resolution to stay engaged with the breath, to stay engaged with the mindfulness of breathing. Being firm in this intention, though not rigid, but firm. Don't worry too much at the moment about becoming too rigid. Just for now, set a firm intention to stay with the breath in this practice, with the body breathing. The mindfulness of breathing. So in the first stage, mindful of the breath with a count after the out breath. The main focus being on the breath. Breathing in and out 1, in and out 2. And when you reach 10, starting again at 1. But the main focus being on the breath at its own natural pace. And remembering our intention to stay engaged with the practice, with the breath. So present to the breath and a sense of purpose about the practice. And if you've wandered off, just noticing that, coming back again to the practice, reminding yourself and setting your intention again to stay with the practice. And now in the second stage of the mindfulness of breathing, well, we can begin by just reminding ourselves of our intention to stay engaged with the practice, our firm intention to stay with the breath. And in the second stage now, we have the count before the in-breath. Main focus still being on the breath. 1, breathe in, breathe out. 2, breathe in, breathe out. And when we reach 10, starting again at 1. The breath at its own pace. And if you've wandered off, just noticing that, coming back again to the practice, setting your intention again to stay with the breath, and starting the count again from 1 before the in-breath. And now in the third stage of the mindfulness of breathing, we're simply aware of the breath, each breath in, each breath out. You can also be aware of the points where the in-breath becomes the out-breath becomes the in-breath. And reminding ourselves again, if necessary, of our intention to stay with the breath in this stage. Being clear of how we should be working at the moment and with the breath. Being clear about our intention and also just relaxing into the breath while remaining aware of the intention. And now in the fourth stage, firstly, spending a few moments noticing where we can first feel the breath enter the body, be it in the nose or the lips or the mouth or the throat. And then noticing the sensations at this point as we breathe in and as we breathe out. And again, reminding ourselves that our intention is to stay engaged with the sensations at that point, being aware of the sensations at this point. So noticing the quality of our presence, of our awareness of the breath. Do we need to relax more into our awareness of the breath? Do we need to have a clearer awareness of the breath? So being clear about how we need to work in this stage. And staying in posture without moving, letting go of all effort, letting go of the breath, and just sitting for a few moments. So now starting to broaden out your attention once more, taking in the room around you, the sounds you can hear, the floor, the ground underneath you, the chair. Starting to slowly and appropriately reintroduce movement when you're ready. And in your own time, coming out of the posture, maybe keeping your eyes closed just for the moment. But coming out of posture if you wish. And just seeing how you feel after having done that meditation now, compared to, say, earlier this morning. What effect has it had on you? And then when you're ready, opening your eyes and bringing the practice to a close. Okay, so maybe what we'll do is we'll take a very short comfort break just because the course is a bit longer than the beginner's course. So what we'll do is we'll be ready to go again maybe in 4 or 5 minutes. So ideally at 10 to 12, we'll be ready to go again. So if you need to nip to the loo or whatever, you can do that now. Okay, so see you back here in 4 or 5 minutes. I'll just mute myself while I'm doing that. And by the way, if you're if you're still just sitting there, feel free to write any comments or questions about how the meditation was as well in the chat box. Okay, so we'll kick off in one more minute, but do feel free to write any comments. I'd be curious to hear if it was any way helpful to have a clear sense of purpose as well in your meditation practice. So I was really emphasizing that. Sorry to hear about that distraction, Bernie. Bernie's husband came into the room while she was meditating. Yeah, thanks for that, Sam. That's great. Good to hear you got on well. Kieran felt a bit sleepy. Ashlyn felt better after feeling a bit grouchy yesterday, so feel calm, maybe a bit sleepy too. Roisin struggled with your posture. Yeah, I mean, if we start to do it for longer, we sat for about 33 minutes there, I think it was. So it was a bit longer than you're used to, 32 minutes. So Roisin was saying your hips are very sore. So yeah, you will need to work on your posture. And if you do get very sore, do move if you need to, but move very, very slowly and carefully. Someone is saying that they're able to continue counting even though they've drifted off. So that's quite a skill. I guess you just have to keep doing it. Yeah, just focus more and keep coming back. Really don't worry if you wander off. The main thing is that you realize that you wander off and you come back to the meditation practice. I really mean that. Yeah, I really mean that. Okay, lots of people saying they got on well. Being reminded of the intention and purpose really helped. That's good. I feel so calm and experience for the first time the pause at the beginning and end of the breath. That's great, John. Thank you. Definitely. Nuala says that the sense of purpose and clear intention helped to stop floating away. Lydian, that's great. I like to think about the purpose. Good. Struggled a bit at times with overall calming. Yeah. Struggled with posture, but for the most stayed with the breath. Yeah. 6 out of 10. Posture fine. kept on thinking about what what you're painting. That's fine, Miriam. I know you're an artist, so probably your creative work comes in. Hilda, your sense of smell was playing mind games. Yeah, I mean, it's a well-recognized phenomena in meditation that your senses can become a bit distorted, actually. So usually it's physical. So sometimes people can feel like they're really big or really small, or their hands are really heavy. On one meditation retreat, I remember feeling like the whole room was rotating and I was hanging from the ceiling. So that's just your senses getting a bit mixed up as your energy gets more freed up. So don't be worried about that. For Hilda, it was a sense of smell. Just stay with it. Don't get too worried about it, and it tends to pass. It's actually usually a sign that you're going a bit deeper, actually. Yeah, it's actually a sign that you're usually going a bit deeper. They're called samapathy, is the technical term. And a sense of purpose definitely helped. I usually have a little resistance to the counting, but different today. Well, in a way, you knew why you're doing it now, maybe. That might be the reason why there was less resistance. Great, welcome, Ailish. You've arrived late. Good to have you. Yeah, so Derek was saying if you had to work with not grinding the teeth, there, that would be a good thing to work with. Good. I wondered why just 10, but I overshot 2. So if you're there and you're counting 63, 64, it's a sign you've wandered off, probably, like. But yeah, I mean, I think the reason we only counted 10, and indeed in some traditions you only counted 3 or 4, actually, or 5. I think the reason you don't count to 10 is that it's easy to count to 10 without thinking about it very much. If you go further than 10, you probably have to start thinking about where it's at and that. So I think just keep it simple at 10. If you find it better just to count to 5, just count to 5, Daria said she had some very beautiful kaleidoscopic visuals coming through, easy to stay present, yeah. So again, that's more of those samapathy that I probably talked about, which is good. Someone else is asking, is there any utility in rating your meditation at the end out of 10? I think different people will find it of different benefit. Personally, I don't like doing that because it feels unpin-downable, but some people do and find it really useful. You just want to be clear what the metrics are. So maybe how able was I to recognize I was distracted might be a good one, rather than saying, how, I don't know how you quantify how absorbed I felt. You might be able to. If it's useful, do it. If it's useful, develop your metrics about 1 to 10, and you might see patterns, but it's terribly subjective as well. And I often say this in the beginner's course, but some days you feel you're up and some days you feel you're down, and some days up and some days down, and some days up and some days down, and some days up and some days down. But what you can see there is that the overall progress is probably up, if you can see my finger. But like what's an up and a down up here might be much higher than what it was up and down here, if you see what I mean. I wish I could draw it out, but it's, for me, what might feel like a bad day might be really good compared to 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So it depends. It's very hard to measure it, but if it's useful, do it, yeah? Okay, so let's move on to a few things I wanted to say about meditation that you can use to take yourself deeper. Let me just share my screen again. Okay, so, oh yeah, sorry, I should say as well, before we get into the next bit, do check out our website. So dublinbuddhistcentre.org/online has all of our events coming up and all our thoughts for the day and various different things. So for example, on Sunday, we'll be having a celebration celebrating the Buddhist teachings. And Pranagita, who used to work in the centre, she now lives in a retreat centre in the UK. She'll be coming back to give a talk about what is the core of a Buddhist life. And that's from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock and will involve meditation as well. There might be a bit of chanting, but you can always duck out if you don't want to do that. So if you're curious about Buddhism in particular, come along to that and want to do a bit of meditation with people. There's also lots of other events you can do, like drop-in meditations each morning, weekday mornings, drop-in meditations each lunchtime. And so on. You can check all that out there on the online page. Just to flag, it's not on the page yet, but there is an upcoming retreat that we're going to be running from the Sunday the 2nd to Sunday the 9th of August. So you might want to put those dates in your diary. It's a week-long full-on retreat. So you might even want to take time off work if you're working at the moment. And it'll be a full day of events, meditation, input. It will be a Buddhist input as well. So you might like to think about coming on that retreat with us, which you can do in the comfort of your own home. I'll say we'll have more details about that in the next week or so. Yeah. And then the other thing to say is that the course is offered completely free, as I've said to you before, so it's completely free, but the centre is almost entirely dependent upon donations. So if you can donate, maybe Stephen, you could put those 2 links in the chat box, if you don't mind. DublinBuddhistCentre.org/online and DublinBuddhistCentre.org/donate. Please do consider giving a donation. If you can give a donation, that's what I'd say. Normally for a course like this, we charge probably, if you're working, 170 euros, if you're unwaged, 130, if low waged, if you're unwaged, 95. Obviously it's not the same kind of course, but you might like to consider that, or you could give more, or you could give less. If all you can give is a £5, that's completely fine as well. And if you can't give anything at all, that's fine too, you know. But do think about giving if you can. Okay, so then in terms of a few pointers for going deeper into the mindfulness of breathing. Let me just bring up my chat here. Great. So a few pointers for the mindfulness of breathing. So the first one I would say is to practice having a non-gaining attitude. Yeah. So I know I said I talked there about having a sense of purpose and being clear about how you're trying to work. But that's a bit different to trying to get overly goal orientated in meditation. So what you're trying to do is not to, sorry, hang on a second. Is the sound okay? Hang on a second. Let me just wait for my phone to come back. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Okay, so my sound went there for a minute. Sorry about that. It's back okay. Great, thanks, Stephen. And thanks, guys, for saying that. Okay, so I'll start again with having a non-gaining attitude. I think that's probably best, is it, Stephen? Give me a thumbs up if it is. Yeah, great. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm actually working off my phone hotspot because I've actually found it's more stable than our Wi-Fi here, but someone phoned me, so my sound goes. Obviously, I'm not taking the call. Anyways, so having a non-gaining attitude. So I have talked a bit about, I've talked a bit this morning already about having a sense of purpose in meditation, yeah? And there's nothing wrong with having a sense of purpose and having, you know, being clear about what you want, how you want to engage with the practice. But that can harden very quickly into getting very goal orientated. So you might want to just make sure that you're not getting too goal orientated. You're not having too fixed expectations of what you want from the meditation practice. So try to get away from, I'm going to go into this meditation and have a really blissful experience, or I am going to not get distracted at all. Yeah. So it's more your intention is that when I get distracted, I'm going to work with that distraction and come back to the practice. Yeah. If you're strongly goal orientated, you might want to focus on letting go. So your goal in meditation is to practice having no goals apart from to stay engaged with the meditation practice. Your goal might be to really let go of expectations in the practice. And they're fine, those kinds of expectations. But if you expect, I'm going to have a really blissful meditation, that's only going to get you in trouble in meditation. I'm going to not be distracted. That's only going to get you in trouble, because what happens is then you get frustrated, you get overly rigid, and you can't be rigid in meditation. Appreciate meditation rather than try and appropriate something from it, if you see what I mean. Okay, so try not to be too fixed about what you're going to get out of the meditation practice. Go into it with firm intentions, but that's different to being really rigidly goal orientated. So have a non-gaining attitude in meditation. The next thing I would say, and I find, sorry, just about the last one, Sangharakshita, who's the man who set up our Buddhist community, he has a very good saying. He says, meditation is not so much about having good meditations as it is about transforming your life. Okay, meditation is not so much about having good meditations as it is about transforming your life. So meditation is more about transformation than having a good meditation. You know, actually, a good meditation is a meditation practice which is flexible, where you're able to stay true to your purpose and you're able to work with, be present with whatever emerges. Yeah, that's what a good meditation is, rather than whether or not you got distracted. Yeah, I really, really emphasize that. Okay, so the next one I find really useful, and this is instead of thinking about the mindfulness of the breath, think about breathing with your experience. Yeah. So when you have your experience, when you have your mind, your physical experience, when emotions emerge, when feeling tones are there, when there's the sound of the garbage truck passing by the front door, you know, when you have thoughts, breathe with that rather than try and push it away and have your breath over here and them over there, you know? So breathe with your body, breathe with what you can feel in your body. Breathe, you could for example, you could play around a bit in meditation. It's good to play around with meditation. Breathe with your feelings in your legs, breathe with your body, breathe with your feelings and emotions, breathe with whatever thoughts are there. You can even breathe with your distractions. So as you're thinking about that thing you got to do at work, maybe start to breathe with that thing, and then gradually start to bring your attention back to the breath rather than just going no, although that can be useful to do sometimes, but often it won't work. Yeah, and you have to breathe with something. You could even think of the practice in terms of mindfulness with breathing, mindfulness while breathing. Yeah. You can think of it in those terms as well. So what I'm really saying is that the breath doesn't exist independent of everything else in the foundations of mindfulness. So you're breathing with the foundations of mindfulness in your practice. And if something is particularly difficult and you're trying to breathe with that, well, maybe you can make it one of three things in your experience. So if you have, let's say, feelings of, ache in your heart, emotional ache in your heart, well, can you also be aware of your stomach and abdomen? Can you also be aware of the sensations in your hands? Broaden it out so that the grief maybe in your heart isn't the only thing you're focusing on, or isn't the core part of your experience. Try and broaden and be aware of more of your body as well. And that can really help with pain, any kind of pain. If there's sounds in the background that you just can't get rid of, if you're living in a city and you're in a busy apartment where there's lots of sound from the street, breathe with the sounds rather than trying to block them out. Yeah. So hopefully that's clear as well. The next one is to think in terms of going into your experience rather than getting something out of your experience. So a lot of these are about how the attitudes to which we approach the mindfulness of breathing. So think in terms of going into your experience rather than getting something out of your experience. So I need to unpack that a bit, yeah? So it's perfectly natural to think of what am I getting out of this meditation? But actually that can set up expectations again and go against the first one that I talked about there. So think about going into your body, going into what's going on. How I like to think about meditation is that you're going for more and more internalized as you go deeper in meditation. So you start off with quite a broad awareness, and then you go more and more inward, yeah? So think about going into things, into your experience. In a way, we're like explorers. When we start out our meditation, every single time, we're going into an undiscovered country, yeah? And there'd be dragons here and there, like they used to have on the old maps. Here be dragons, when they didn't know what was there on the maps. So here be dragons. There are dragons in your experience. There's undiscovered country in your experience. So you're going inwards into something that you don't actually know. Yeah. Every meditation is fresh. Every meditation is a new exploration of what's going on. And you are, in a way, an explorer in meditation. You could even say you're a psychonaut. So astronauts go into space, psychonauts go into your psyche, into your experience. Yeah. So think in terms of going inwards and exploring what's going on internally as you breathe or as you do metta as well. And I find that quite an exciting thing. I'll go more into this in week 5, but you could even say somanaut. Yeah, that would work as well. You're going into your body. Yeah. You could even think in terms of, oh God, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, so you're an explorer, I guess. That's what you are. You're an explorer in meditation. Yeah. So think in terms of going into your experience. I find this really interesting. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I mean, for me, a central question is, well, what is your mind? What is mind? You know, and when Buddhism talks about mind, it means mind and heart, you know. So what is mind? What is emotion? What is thought? Who am I? Those kinds of questions can be really interesting, the ones that we can go inwards. Now, I'll come back to how to use those questions in week 5, but, you know, it's really interesting to go inwards and see what's there, yeah. You can also use images. So, you know, each breath in, each breath out is like the waves rising and falling in your experience. Or, you know, your body is floating in warm water, and each exhalation you rise, each inhalation you rise, each exhalation you fall, and so on. And then the last thing I'll say as a pointer is to have warmth in your practice. So do remember not to let it get cold and mechanical. You know, your body is a living animal. Psychonaut or psychonut. Thank you for that, Eilish. That's good. Whatever works for you. Sorry, I shouldn't get distracted by the comments. Warmth. So remember, not your body is a living animal. So or a living being. So remember that the breath is part of this process of life, of being alive, and we can have a sense of warmth. You might even need to do a few minutes of metta for yourself and metta for your body. Don't let the mindfulness of breathing get cold and robotic, which it can do, particularly if you don't keep up the metta bhavana practice. Okay, so there are a few pointers that you might like. If one of those struck you particularly, you might like to take them into your practice during a week. Non-gaining attitude, breathe with your experience, going into your experience rather than getting something out of your experience, using images, and having a sense of warmth, yeah? So if any of those really struck you, then do use them during your week. Do use them in your mindfulness of breathing. Read over them again in the notes this week. Yeah. And great, good. So the next thing then, a few things about the course then itself. So getting the most from the course. So I want to say a few things about this now. So the first thing is that meditation is very personal. So what we offer is a very kind of broad way of looking at things. And I've given you some of the things that work for me, but you need to go into your meditation in your way that works for you. And remember that everyone's exploration of meditation will be different. Yeah. The next thing is, now this might give you some of you a heart attack or palpitations, but I'd like you to meditate for longer. Yeah. Ideally, I'd like you to meditate for 40 minutes each day. So we're nearly at 40 minutes there. Yeah. In one sit, I mean. And if you haven't been keeping your meditation practice going and you're kind of restarting it, maybe try for 20 or 30 minutes this week. If you've just learned to meditate, maybe I'll let you away with 30 minutes this week each day, and maybe next week we'll move up to 40 minutes each day, yeah? And there are bells on the meditation, guided meditation site for this. I mean, if that's completely impossible, at least try 30 minutes a day. The image that I remember being given this on my first follow-on course, it's like baking a cake. If you take a cake out after 20 minutes each time, you know, it'll never get fully cooked or as cooked as deeply. So you're trying to be more cooked in the meditation practice. And I mean 40 minutes in a total, in one session, yeah, in one go. I mean, you could do 2 20-minute sits, but you won't. I'd like you for this period of time to try and do one-off longer sessions, yeah? And if you're doing the mindfulness breathing, I mean, maybe 10 minutes of that is a body scan at the start, and then you move into the mindfulness breathing. That's fine for 30 minutes, or 5 minutes at the end is just sitting, you know? So maybe you do like 5 to 8 minutes of setting up, and 5 minutes of just sitting at the end, and that would leave around 28 minutes or so for the mindfulness of breathing itself, 7 minutes a stage, something like that. Again, that's where this app Insight Timer might be useful to set that up. But so again, I'm setting a challenge for you here that I want you to try out and do the best you can. What I'd like you to do as well then is to buy a little notebook and keep a meditation diary. And after every meditation, spend a minute or two just writing how that was, yeah? And there's real benefit. I've done this myself on retreat in particular. There's real benefits to doing it this way. There's real benefits to doing it this way. It gives you a sense of clarity around how the meditation was. Then after doing it for a few days or a week or so, you can read back over how you got on, and you can really clearly see patterns of awareness emerge, patterns of how you are in your meditation emerge. And I think even the act of writing something down clarifies it as well. So that's a really, really good thing I'd like you to do. Keep it on your meditation cushion with a pen, and after every meditation, just spend 2 minutes. It only has to be like 3 sentences about how your meditation is, yeah? Bernie's just asking, is it metta bhavana or mindfulness of breathing? I would say to alternate the practices each week, but if you want to focus a bit more on mindfulness, you could do 2 mindfulness for every metta this week. Another thing, now this is easier to do when you're in a meditation course, but what I ask some people to do is pair up with each other. And maybe what you can do is, if you have, and get a person who, get their phone number, and every day you send a message to them saying, meditated today, went well, or bit distracted but a good set. So you text someone every day, and they text you. Insight Timer is the app. Yeah, I'll send it in the email anyway if I can remember. But get a meditation buddy. So if you know someone who meditates, you might want to ask them, do you mind for these next few weeks if we text each other every day or WhatsApp each other every day after meditation? And you might even get into more of a dialogue, check in with each other about how it is once a week or even every day. But it can be good to do that. Now, I know it's harder to do it when we're online, and it might not be possible for you, but have a think about that, yeah? Read the notes, stay inspired. I'll send you the notes later today, and I might even see if I can send you a little Dharma talk or a little meditation talk to listen to as well. The home practice this week then, in a way I've already given you some of it, but connect to what inspires you in meditation. Read the notes, listen to the Dharma talk, enhance your meditation practice, do it for longer, and focus on an aspect you found useful today in the mindfulness of breathing. You know, like if it's going into your experience, if it's having a non-gaining attitude, maybe having a sense of purpose in your meditation practice will be useful. So really focus on something to enhance your meditation practice this week, yeah? Again, I'll email you all this in a couple of hours' time. And then the last thing I'll say before seeing if there's any more questions, don't forget to donate if you can to us. So Stephen will share those links now in the chat, yeah? Okay, so we have a few minutes for questions. So yeah, the app is Insight Timer. I'll stop sharing the screen now so I can see a bit more. Could visual images just be distractions? They could be, yeah. So if you have visuals or whatever kind of samapathy, the main thing is to keep doing the practice and also let them in. So be aware of the breath and be aware of whatever's going on, and just let it emerge, and eventually they'll fade away again, yeah. Great, thanks Lita for that. Good to hear it's a good morning. Any other questions coming in? Great. Yeah, that's so someone else is saying there, my sit tends to go better if I'm not using a screen beforehand. So watch out for your mental hygiene, so to speak. Don't go from really, really busy just straight into meditation as well. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording.